Okay, 1 o'clock. Good and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Taupō District Council May meeting here in our suburbious new surroundings. Fantastic. Good to see you all. I'd like to start the meeting by having a welcome karakia, please. Thank you. Tuia ki te Māori te whenua. Tua ki te mana o te tangata. Tua ki te pono te araha. Ki piki, ki eki, ki te tōnata. Ue taike. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Welcome, everyone, and members of the press, public, staff, executive, deputy mayor and councillors. Lovely to see you all. We have apologies from Councillor Truman and Councillor Leonard. Do I have any other apologies?
I'm not sure where
Councillor Campbell, he's not online?
He's online.
Is he online?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he is, yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Campbell, you registered? He's online, yep, cool.
I'm here.
Cool. Thanks, Duncan. All right, could I have a mover for those apologies? Thank you. Councillor Lachlan, seconded by Councillor Williamson. All those in favour, please say aye. Is against? Carried. And good to see you, Councillor Fletcher, back from Family Matters. So, and you're looking very distinguished there too, by the way. Very good. Good to see you, Karen. Okay, yeah, the meeting will be recorded and uploaded later to the YouTube channel. Any conflicts of interest pertaining to the items today? No? Straightforward then. Okay, we'll go to the confirmation of the minutes. The meeting that was held on the 29th of April 2025. Any clarification of those minutes, please? No? Could I have a mover, please, that we accept those minutes? Thank you, Councillor Shepherd, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. 5.1, adoption of the dangerous, affected and insanitary buildings policy, presented by Mr. Andrew Wilson, Policy Advisor. Thank you very much, Andrew. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors. We'll take the overall item as read. However, we will note that there was an amendment just before this meeting and we've tabled a new version of the document. There were two clauses, clauses 9 and 17, which gave reference to section 124 of the Building Act. The reference to that section, that section is more to do with generally dangerous or generally insanitary buildings. Those particular clauses talk about immediately dangerous and immediately insanitary, and so we should give reference to section 129 and 130 respectively. As you see in the item in front of you, the yellow text, the highlighted yellow text, that is the changed portion, and that has a slightly different set of powers related to the CE's ability to issue a warrant to a contractor or council officers to immediately conduct works when there is a present threat, present risk to life or safety. That's the only difference compared to the report that you've received. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions of Andrew? Pretty straightforward. Delivered nicely. Councillor Greenslade.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Andrew. I've read through this and I just have a question over the current government policy of people being able to build certain size buildings. I think it's 70 square metres or something like that. And how does that sort of interface with this bylaw?
Through the chair, so any of those buildings would still need to be built to the relevant code standards. So if someone was to build something that wasn't to code, it may be determined to be dangerous or insanitary. So they may not have to go through the normal process, but still must be built to the relevant code, building code requirements.
So would council staff come and look at it, even though it's not having to be resource consent, or how would we know about it? Really, is the
Through
question.
The chair, yeah. My understanding is that they still need to seek the building consent component. They just don't need a resource consent for the building. That's my understanding. I'm happy to be told I'm wrong if anyone else has any other information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenslade. Any other questions of Andrew?
Councillor Campbell.
Oh, okay, sorry. bit hard to see down there. Councillor Campbell.
Yes, Andrew, I mean, interesting that there's been no submissions, and it largely seems sort of a template adjustment. I'm just wondering, in the last 5 years, have there been any real world case studies or examples in Taupō that have forced anything to be reevaluated in the past 5 years, or is it just sweet?
Through the chair, I think that's a question Jess will be best placed to answer.
Jess, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Just through the chair to answer that, in the last 5 years we've had 3 buildings that have been deemed dangerous, that have had the relevant notices applied to them.
Thank you. Did you hear that, Duncan?
Yeah. So by the sounds of it, the process at the time was all right, and things got sorted out, and nothing needed changing. Is that well?
Yes, that's correct. The bar for deeming a building as being dangerous is actually quite high under the Building Act, and so therefore you don't see it particularly often.
No, okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions of Andrew or Jess while she's at it? No, all pretty straightforward. Thank you, Andrew. Great comprehensive report there, sir. Could I have a mover for that 5.1 adoption? Thank you, Councillor Shepherd, and seconded. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Rankin. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. 5.2, Andrew, you're still on the chair, sir. Consideration of a freedom of expression policy.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So through the chair, I'll take the item as read. As you'll be aware, some of you were present for a workshop on this particular matter where some direction was given around the look and feel of a proposed policy, and today that policy is there in front of you for your consideration. Happy to take any questions on the matter or any points of clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions or queries on the freedom of expression? Any potential changes or anything? Everybody's happy. Thank you for rewriting that policy, Andrew. Councillor Fletcher.
Yeah, just questions around, obviously, freedom of expression is so important, and it's been mentioned as a cornerstone of democracy. Unfortunately, some has been weaponised and to further perpetuate minorities within our country, and indigenous peoples, obviously Māori people, and the constituents in which I represent. So I just wanted to know if there were any, and I have read through the policy, is there any safeguards around ensuring that there's elements in place that can help deal with things like misinformation, deal with things like, or anything, I suppose, that further perpetuates or further oppresses minorities within our country, and anything that along the lines that may encourage hate speech or anything like that. So I just wanted to get, I guess, clarification from your perspective around that's inclusion within the policy.
Through the chair, we would rely on the law for that type of speech, and it would be up to a court to decide in those particular cases. You've got things like the Harmful Digital Communications Act and the Human Rights Act that provide those protections, and it would be a matter of any individual case to go before a court and for a ruling to be made on those types of things. Council as an entity has some social media guidelines and things like that help to try and minimise that, but obviously we also have a policy in front of you that wants to speak to the importance and the necessary nature of freedom of expression. So there's a balancing act there, and if anyone felt either that we were too strong one way or the other, they obviously have recourse to the court.
Councillor Campbell.
Yes. To follow on from that, actually, I mean, I just want to say I will be voting against adoption of this so-called freedom of expression policy, because I do think it is a fraud. This chamber, through the cynical manipulation of standing orders last October, has chosen procedural censorship over open debate by silencing the voices of elected members. And I think even a child will understand that if it takes the permission of another person to speak, then that is an overt form of censorship. So this policy we have now before us pretends to value the very thing which was willingly squashed, and there's been no apology, acknowledgement or reckoning, nor for that cancelled public event that set the chilling precedent to stimulate this process in the first place. So this policy does not restore freedom of expression, and I will not be party to that sort of hypocrisy.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Any other questions? Councillor Westerman.
I was just going to ask Andrew. Andrew, do you see this policy as affecting any of the work of council as we currently do it?
Through the chair, I think that's probably a matter for the CE to answer in terms of the operational matters, but by and large I think it just reaffirms council's current approach and what council should be doing as the law stands. So I don't think we'll have any substantial changes to the way council operates currently. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Bishop. Andrew, just confirm for me this policy was written in complete cooperation with the Free Speech Union post their workshop they held with all elected members and staff here earlier this year. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, we had a meeting with their officers. We discussed various matters. We presented a draft to them for their feedback, and their feedback was circulated to elected members at the workshop that was held with the draft with some suggested amendments at that time based on that feedback. So yes.
And would it be fair to say that the policy we have before us today is a reflection of their input and their agreed position for us as a council?
Through the chair, I wouldn't presume to speak for the Free Speech Union. However,
not asking you to speak for them, but is it a fair representation that they've had good input into this?
Through the chair, I believe so. They've had a fair chance to present their views to us, and their views were duly considered by those elected members at the workshop, and we provided some potential changes based on that feedback. So there was a discussion had around that, yes.
That being the case, through the chair, I will be voting in favour of this because the Free Speech Union, not that I'm their advocate or their spokesperson, but they are the national body who have been challenging councils and government agencies up and down the length and breadth of the country, and the fact that they've given us a tick of approval is more than adequate for me. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Westman.
The recommended option 1 just makes the comment there, Andrew, the disadvantage of this approach is that if further guidance is needed, Council has to amend the policy or develop further area-specific guidance documents as and when required. Is that timely or much of an issue? Is it something we need to be concerned about?
Through the chair, I think that would be a matter for Julie would be able to help answer that. I think it would depend though.
Oh, look, through the chair, my recollection was actually Andrew saying that the policy actually stands us in good stead to actually outline what our requirements are under legislation, and should in future further guidance be required, that could be developed depending on the issue that arose at the time. So I don't see that as an issue, that we could pick that up in future, but this actually provides a framework for us to be able to move forward on.
Councillor Campbell.
Oh, yes, I'd just like to point out, and I'd like to give kudos to Andrew actually for his very diplomatic reply, and I think you could make a politician one of these days to Councillor Taylor's question. But I'd just like to point out that, and I recognise Councillor Taylor was not at the workshop, so perhaps you didn't realise that the Free Speech Union did make a contribution, and they put a raft of suggested amendments to this document, but and during that workshop, these changes were considered, and every single one of them duly removed. So, I mean, that's one thing I want to point out in case you didn't realise. But not only that, but I mean, something I pointed out at the workshop too was that it's all very well having a policy with some nice words, but giving it some traction on the ground, I actually think that is a responsibility of governance, and I don't see this policy doing that.
Just to clarify, Councillor Taylor, you were at the workshop, were you?
Will you?
I was at the workshop that the Free Speech Union conducted with staff, correct, yes.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, I thought you might not have been there. That's all right. Okay.
Councillor Fletcher, and then Councillor Shepherd.
Yeah, the question is too prone. I was looking through the options provided when it came to option 1 and the amendment of the policy or development of further areas specific guidance documents as and when needed. Does that kind of open up to how things like what I'd mentioned earlier, maybe like hate speech or racism, you know, where does that kind of fit in? Because I understand this is such a big topic, not only for our council, but of course what's happening nationally as well. So trying to get a good gauge of what the evolution of this documentation could look like moving forward, I suppose, is where my brain goes to. The second question, though, is also just around clarification of option 3 as well, that this is already provided under the law, so is it necessarily, I think the last part of that is having this policy is not strictly necessary.
Through the chair. So to answer the first part of your question there, we would need to update this policy when the case law, the relevant case law around matters such as hate speech or misinformation or any legislation changes. So right now the law provides a framework to assess these types of matters. They go before the court and the court makes a ruling on whether or not something meets the various thresholds. So that's not a place for us to necessarily make a call and make a ruling on, but it's for the court to do so. And this document is merely providing guidance on what the current state of play is in terms of the freedom of expression and the law. And as that changes, we will update this document to reflect that. And so to speak to the third part or the second part of your question, that's right. That's not strictly necessary to have a policy. The policy is a nice way for particularly officers and governance level staff and also yourselves to be able to, at a glance, quickly understand what those obligations look like. And then if there is further clarification needed, we can get legal advice on particular matters. It's more as a first port of call before we need to seek further advice if the matter is complex.
Sorry, just quickly, I think that was emphasis of my point. I guess we don't necessarily have policies around all of these other contributing factors when it comes to freedom of speech. So the question was actually based around its necessity and us adopting it as a policy with local government or with the Taupō District Council. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Andrew. Freedom of expression is vital in a democracy, especially in the context of elected members. So I'm actually pleased we've taken the initiative to introduce a policy that protects that, but also is broad enough that if it requires further tweaking as time goes on, that we have the ability to do that. Freedom of expression needs to be protected, as does, I guess, hate speech. So this is a really good foundational framework. I'm satisfied with how it reads. I'm satisfied that it gives the impression to the general public that we are open to freedom of expression because it is vital. And I thank you for your work. Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Been moved by Councillor Shepherd, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Thank you, Andrew, for the good work and listening to the delegation that was here from the Freedom of Expression Union and formulating this afternoon. So well done. Moved by Councillor Shepherd, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Next up, 5.3.
Oh, your worship.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, your worship. Sorry. I'm in against.
You're against. You would like that recorded, Councillor Campbell?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. 5.2. 5.3. We're up to now. Bylaw reviews trade, waste and water supply, and we have this afternoon with us Andrew Wilson.
Recurring theme, your worship.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. everyone. So the item in front of you is about the 2 bylaw reviews. We received very limited feedback on these bylaws, trade waste and water supply. As you'll note in the report, we sent out a number of emails to the directly affected parties, affected under the trade waste bylaw in particular, and received no feedback from anyone. That probably speaks to the fact that we're going out with a proposal proposing no changes. So it's the status quo, and appears to be fine. I think most of the feedback the team has received in the past has been around the price of disposal rather than the rules around disposal. So that's a separate matter, I guess, entirely from the bylaw. With respect to water supply, there was only one piece of feedback that provided a substantial change, or a change, which was from Fire and Emergency New Zealand, just wanting to have a point of clarity placed into the bylaw to make it really explicit that emergency services have powers above and beyond our bylaw to acquire water from the council's supply. Aside from that, I'm happy to take any questions or any points of clarification.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions? Councillor Greenslade.
Thank you, Andrew. I've got a few questions. I commented on the fact that the bylaw does confirm that fens can take water at any time, so that wasn't an issue. Number 14, clause number 14, I thought that statement was excellent. Council will be rolling out metering over the coming years to all connections. However, these will not be used for billing unless extraordinary use is determined. I thought the community would be very happy to hear that statement in there, because I know that people have been concerned about that when meters go in they will start to be charged. However, it does say contrary to council resolution, but that's great to have that explanatory note in there. I was a little concerned about 21, where you talked about back charging or refunding for 2 years. I wondered how that fitted with the statute of limitations, which does allow for a much more extended time than 2 years.
Through the chair, that's the position our bylaws previously taken, and I've heard no feedback from the teams with regard to that being a concern for them, so we hadn't proposed to change that. Thank you.
I'd like to know with 22, what's your definition of waste? Your husband, my husband's and yours might be quite different. A person must not waste water. I thought that was a delightful statement.
Through the chair, that's usually around the willful sort of waste, so it's leaving a hose on, that it's not doing anything of note and it's just running down a driveway into the stormwater system. That's the type of thing the officers doing the compliance work would look for to see if someone was being wasteful.
So if you've put down a new lawn and you live in Auckland and you're going to leave the irrigation on and go home, we would consider that to be wasting water. Through
the chair, provided there's no restriction been put in place by the local authority, unless they have a bylaw to the contrary, they would be allowed to water their irrigation system. Okay, right. Having said that, if there was restrictions put in place, then they would be in violation of those restrictions, okay, which are set under the same bylaw, so they would be in trouble for that, definitely. Would be in trouble for that. Number 25, I did think that the customer having to give 20 working days notice in writing for a requirement for disconnection of supply was a little bit extreme. I felt that council could do much better than that, because 20 working days basically works out to 1 month. I mean, you know, you can change your electricity with a telephone call in, I think, 48 hours or something like that. I wondered why you were allowing yourself such a huge amount of time. Through the chair, I can provide an answer to that outside of this meeting. I'm not sure why the guys set on the 20 working days. I'll have a suspicion probably to do with dealing with the contractor and ourselves. And can you explain to me, please, in number 26, 1H, what is a single pass cooling or heating system? Through the chair, that's not my area of expertise, unfortunately. I can't tell you exactly what a single pass heating or cooling system is in that context. It's a technical thing provided by the subject matter expert.
Somebody can come back to me on that.
Tony, can you come back to Councillor Greenslade on that, the single pass? I know what a single
through the chair,
pass is.
yes, certainly. Of course, we'll follow up.
I know what a single pass is in rugby, but...
And only one more, Your Worship.
Okay.
Only one more. Number 27, almost the last one. I think it's number 6. I was concerned that council may restrict water supply to persons or land. My understanding of that is that we cannot restrict water supply to people.
Through the chair, my understanding is that we can, in extraordinary circumstances, we can.
But it wouldn't be things like non-payment of rates or anything along those lines. It's sort of taken as a human right that we supply
chair,
water
yes.
to property. Yeah.
Through the chair, my understanding is that non-payment of rates is not grounds for turning off the water.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That's all.
Very good, Tony. Correct.
Through the chair, just to add to that one, I mean, we do have options of putting in restrictors, so water supply will still be maintained, but it'll be a restricted flow.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Greenslade, for those questions. Who's that? Ready? Councillor Campbell.
Oh, yeah. Just I've got a couple of questions, but on just that last point. So, what would construe an extraordinary reason to shut off a private water supply then?
It's restricted as the word, isn't it, Tony? Yeah, we'd never shut it off, would we? Or
Through the chair, I mean, that's a very, very last resort. Certainly, obviously, there's well-being issues that have to be observed with water supplies being available. But certainly in those instances where we may have some sort of long or protracted disagreement, maybe with a property owner around maybe wastage. We touched on wastage. So certainly, I've been in instances where we put in a restrictor and provided a minimum amount of water for a property to be able to manage all of the things they need to do with water. I'm not aware that we've done any in the recent while.
thank you, Tony. Right, see-ho.
I just had a couple other questions.
Oh, yep, Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, can we confirm that that any of these bylaw updates don't conflict with anything coming in the water services reform? We're not setting up some conflict, are we?
Andrew?
My second question, I'll just ask two at once. The second one was just emergency services. It just occurred to me that does that cover rural firefighting units as well? I don't know where they get their water from, but just a question.
Andrew?
Through the chair, to answer the question around rural fire services, yes, it does. They do count. They're governed by the Fire and Emergency New Zealand legislation, so they have the same powers in that regard. To your second point, which was, if you could please remind me, Councillor Campbell, the other point that you raised.
First point.
Oh,
yeah.
water services reform.
Through the chair. Through the chair, we don't necessarily know what the final end state and direction from the central government will be on water services. It's a developing space, and if we need to make any amendments subject to our water services delivery plan or any other conflict that comes down the line through legislation, we can make those changes, and we'll make them as necessary.
Thank you, Andrew. Any other final questions of Andrew? No? All right. There's a recommendation up there. Over mover for 1 and 2, please. Thank you, Councillor Rankin. Seconded by Councillor Greenslade. All those in favour, please say aye. As against, carried. Thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate your time today. Right, 5.4, we have Heather Williams. Nice to see you, Heather, Resource Consents Manager for the Council, and it's regarding the appointment of Commissioners for 25 and 27 Kahikatea Drive and Oti Toki. Road in Kinloch. Good afternoon, Heather. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors. So this particular item is another request for a commissioner for a upcoming hearing. So as noted in the paper, this application for 84 residential lots was publicly notified. It received a number of submissions, however only 9 of them wished to be heard at the hearing. So quite a small amount really for the hearing that wish to speak. So in that, I've also noted that whilst we have 2 of our councillors who are qualified, there is an option for submitters to, or the applicant could, request that councillors don't sit on the hearing, which in this case was part of the submissions. So therefore we've recommended Ms. Gina Sweetman, who's a qualified and experienced planner, would have the delegations to do this hearing.
So just to clarify, they don't want the councillors on the hearing?
No, so there is a section of the Act that
Yeah.
can be requested that local government.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Are these residential applications?
This one is it's the essentially Seven Oaks in Kinloch, so it's one of the stages there, 84 residential lots.
Okay, cool. Any questions of Heather? No, all pretty straightforward. And you've got a name there, up there.
Oh, through the chair.
Gina Sweetman. Councillor Campbell.
Oh, yeah. Just a general question, actually. I mean, this is a more intensive development than expected. I'm just wondering, these applicants, have they previously submitted similar applications to this, or is this something new we don't expect to happen again and again, or what?
So the developer is currently doing the Seven Oaks development, and this is another part of their property and putting forward another part for subdivision. So the purpose of the hearing is to be able to hear from submitters, to hear from the applicant, and to hear from council. This paper is really just about looking to delegate the decision-making power. It's not commenting at all about the application.
No.
Councillor Lachlan.
Yeah.
I'm happy to move when you're ready. Gina Sweetman's a very good operator who do a great job. Kia ora.
Cool. Thank you, Councillor Lachlan. Any other questions of Heather? Thank you, Heather, for bringing this item here today. It's been moved by Councillor Lachlan, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Right, Heather, you are still up, I believe. 5.5, delegation of decision making for 2 resource consent applications, Commissioner 24 Sorrento Drive and 11 Siena Way. All these new names. It's quite incredible, isn't it? Right, Heather, same.
So this one's a little bit different. So I'm not actually requesting commissioner for the purpose of a hearing. So in this instance, the council staff that hold delegations to make decisions on notification and decisions, we have a conflict of interest. So to get around that, we can't delegate to someone. It has to come through the council, has to make that decision as to that delegation. So in this instance, we recommended for the purpose of making those decisions that it also be delegated to an experienced planning commissioner, Mr. Cam Twigley.
Any questions of Heather on that one? Whereabouts are these locations? Are they
So this one is known as Amana Ridge. So it's as you go into the Hooker Falls development. Used to be the vineyard.
Right.
So it's in that area, that stage.
Yeah, sure.
There's 2 undeveloped lots. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. All right, Heather, is everyone happy with Heather appointing, well, ourselves actually appointing, what's the person's name again?
Mr. Cam Twigley.
Cam Twigley, yeah. Cool, do I have a mover there for that? Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. and seconded by Councillor Williamson. Thank you once again, Heather. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. 5.6, Taupō District Council Performance Report. Invite Julie, Chief Executive, to set the scene, please, Julie.
Good afternoon, again, Your Worship and Councillors. Look, this is always a team effort, this performance report, so I'm very happy to answer questions or the exec team for their components, and of course we've got Panel and Jeanette for the finance and project. What I've covered in the front of this report is really just that the local water's done well work, which has taken a large portion of time in the organisation during April, and I just want to thank the team that have been working quite hard on that to be able to get that at that time ready for consultation. So happy to take questions as we work through.
Thanks. Any questions of Julie to start with? Okay, so Panel, do you want to kick the show off, please?
Kia ora koutou. I'll take the portfolio report as read, but just a short deep dive into some of the key changes. There's not many changes, but just in case you have any further questions. We're 2 less projects this month. Whangamata Road's basically been closed out until the next financial year, and the digital transformation has moved to the risk and assurance agenda. For a number of you, you're involved in the OD Park project, but there is a slight cost risk increase. Just as there is some uncertainty around the tenders as they're coming in for the construction of the new facility. With erosion control for Tapu Waiharuru, there's a minor time cost increase as a recent stakeholder meeting has revealed that we're not as far along in the process as we had previously understood. For local waters done well, there's no change, but just a reminder that the public consultation closes in a couple of days. Turangi wastewater consent, the time risk is slightly up associated with the feedback on the draft consent conditions, as that's an unknown timeline. And good news regarding View Road land disposal. The time risk has reduced as there's new integrators working really well out there, and the full integration in the system is planned for July and August. Drinking Water Standards New Zealand, that group, that portfolio of projects across the district, cost risk has reduced as the Kinloch and O'Mori cost increases are now baked into the expected annual plan numbers. Good news, overall delivery is up very close to our target for the financial year. Thank you. Any questions?
Good. Thank you, Panel. Any questions of Panel? Councillor Greenslade.
Yes, it's not really you, Panel. I don't know who it is actually. I want to go back to the performance report where you're talking about answering telephone calls 78% within 40 seconds. I'd like to know how many of those calls come outside working hours. Have we got that information?
Through the chair, no, I don't have that to hand, but I'm happy to provide those numbers to you. So that's just outside of normal council hours. Is that what you're after? Sure, happy to get those numbers for you.
Get that to you.
That does seem to be the time that I get contacted and people want to do things. It's always outside council hours, and it's they know what to do during council hours, but obviously outside council hours they don't.
Any other questions of Panel? Councillor Shepherd.
Well, I guess just for the public that are listening, we obviously do have after hours, so the phone is always picked up. Yeah, so just for anybody that's listening in the public.
Councillor Shepherd.
This may actually be for Julie. I'm just having a look at the delivery of the business plan, and it does indicate to me there's quite a lot to get through by the end of the financial year. And how confident are you that you're going to get there?
Wonderful question, Councillor Shepherd. We have a meeting tomorrow for exactly that conversation. So we acknowledge that to date we've done pretty well in terms of keeping on track with that piece of all that work. When we look ahead, there's some projects that are coming up that will span this year and next financial year. I would also just observe that probably actually Local Waters Done Well has had a bigger impact on the organisation than perhaps what, from my personal perspective, what I foresaw when we were entering into this financial year. So personally wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of those projects that do slide into next financial year. And we're actually meeting tomorrow to do exactly that piece of work.
Cool. Other questions, Panel? Jeanette, good afternoon.
Kia ora koutou, everybody. I'd just like to take the financial report as read, but I'll just highlight a couple of items. The development contributions in the revenue area you can see is $3.2 million below budget. We have got two quite large developments that are behind schedule, so we've not. It's a timing thing. So I just wanted to let you know that we've identified what those are, and.
Sorry, Jeanette, will they be in before the end of June?
I'm thinking not. No.
Not quite?
No.
Okay.
As Panel mentioned, our capital spend is getting close. We're at 94% as at today of our capital target of 68 million. And I'm pleased to report the last page talks about the TEL fund, and I've just checked with Forsyth Bar, and the TEL fund is now up to 75.4 million, so it has recovered from the jolt from Mr. Trump. Not all the way, but it's getting there. So.
Thanks, Jeanette. Any questions on the finances? Jeanette. Cool, all pretty straightforward. Thank you, Councillor Greenslade.
Outstanding rates has increased significantly from the same time last year. How are we getting on with that?
With obviously our rates, this is the April report, so the outstanding rates represent the rates that were invoiced out in April. We're still working through recovering rates from people, but obviously the climate is a little bit more challenging now. I'm not sure whether Sarah
One of the things that I did say to people, and I've said it quite consistently across the district to people, that changing to monthly charging, or somebody said to me they're weekly, I think that they could do, or fortnightly, certainly would make it a whole lot easier for our households to budget, because I think council sort of automatically goes to the quarter, don't you, unless asked otherwise. Is that sort of like our default position? We charge quarterly unless otherwise notified?
Through the chair, do you want me to answer that, Jeanette, just given it was in my, sorry Councillor Greenside, it was in my section of the performance report. So coming back to your question in relation to outstanding rates receivables, and you'll note that I did kind of mention that, but there's only a smaller bit for me to put the words in, but we are tracking that, so it's really hard to attribute what's due to the financial climate and what's due to our split of into 3 rates instalments, right? We can see last year the outstanding from prior years balances increasing, and that will have to be managed going forward. So we do, that does suggest there is something to do with the financial environment and not just our 3 rates instalments, but that just needs to be managed. And again, given we're a slightly extraordinary year, it won't probably be evident till next month or the month after kind of what the quantum of that issue is, but again, it's certainly on our radar. In relation to your other question about our payments, we actually have a real significant portion of our ratepayers on direct debits, probably quite high compared to a lot of other councils. So a lot of people are already paying the fortnightly, monthly, weekly instalments. We don't necessarily default to quarterly, although that's when charges are due, right? So people don't have to pay it until quarterly. So there are a number of people who that's when they want to pay, when the rates fall due. But we do encourage more regular payments, and we have a lot of work with our ratepayers. So I think the team do a really good job in that space, actually.
I know that when people complain to me about rates, and of course as councillors we accept complaints about rates probably every day, one of the things I have been saying to them consistently is try talk to council, see if you can't change how you pay your rates, and you might find it easier to cope with. And I think that's a really good message, which I know you have been putting out to the community, but I think probably most of us are trying to put that message out as well too.
Thank you, Councillor Greenslade. Any other questions of Jeanette? No, Julie, you're summing up there? No, you're all good? Yeah, appreciate the questions. Cool. Okay, thank you very much, Julie, once again, and your team. for all the work that you do. Very much appreciated. Right, have a mover, please. Thank you, Councillor Loughlin, seconded by Councillor Fletcher. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Right, 5.7, Tūrangi Co-Governance Committee appointment of Ngāti Turangi-Tongariro members. Invite Karen. Good afternoon, Karen.
Kia ora koutou. So this item is just formalising what has happened. Ngāti Turangi-Tongariro had their hapu elections in May and appointed Ms Bernice Te Ahuru and Mr Te Wharo Walker Jr. And this item is just formalising it so that it's all katipai with the Local Government Act and goes in line with our side of the mana whakahono. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Karen on that scenario? No? Oh, Councillor Greenslade, sorry.
First of all, I would like to publicly thank Waka, Asher and Titaki and you for their contribution to the Co-Governance Committee over the last 2.5 years. Both of them have held position as co-chair on that committee, and their insight, understanding and support has been invaluable to the initial Co-Governance Committee, which was set up by Taupō District Council. And we're actually going to miss both of them. And in relation to the people being appointed by Ngāti Turangi-Tongariro, I would like to congratulate Bernie and Te Wharo, two people who I know who will also contribute to that committee, and look forward to working with them. So unless anybody else has got anything I'd like to say, I would like to move that recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Greenslade, and certainly endorse your comments there this afternoon. Appreciate the work that the two former members have done, and welcome the new team on board. So look forward to the first meeting next week, is it? Yeah, next week, yeah. Very good. Okay, nothing else to report on the Turangi? Sorry? Has it been moved? Did you move it, Sandra? Oh, good on you. Thank you very much. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Taylor. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. 5.8, we have council engagements for June 2025, appointments and training and conferences. Right, Karen again.
Kia ora anō. So there's been a few changes to engagements for next month. First of all, the Turangi Co-Governance Committee workshop has been reduced to 30 minutes, so it now starts at 10 a.m. There is a forecasting and annual plan workshop that has been added for Wednesday the 11th of June from 1 p.m. And the Te Kopua Kanapanapa meeting, which we had 2 tentative dates for, that has now been confirmed as being Friday 27 June. And then the last one, sorry, is that there is an additional council meeting on Monday 30th of June for adoption of the annual plan 2025-26, and that's at 9:30 a.m.
So if I can just speak to that, apologies, just to speak to that additional council meeting, just for clarification, the staff are just asking for a couple of extra days to finalise the annual plan, particularly on the CapEx program, which we'll be discussing next week, so just to clarify.
Thank you very much, Jolie. Okay, so just number 2 on that list, the local government conference is coming up this year again, and I wasn't too sure who around the table. I've had some interest from the Deputy Mayor as well and Councillor Westerman, but whether anyone else is interested in attending or members happy with those 2 appointees for that.
Are we up for any awards at the?
We were hoping to be in the award for this building, but we didn't make the cut, did we? Correct. I.e. judges don't travel. So how can we not be in the finalists for this? Anyway. No, we're not. No.
Not, but we are in the finalists for the Taipō Awards for this building, which we're looking forward to in a few weeks' time, just for clarification.
Yeah. What's the difference? Sorry.
So Taitura is around staff, so it's council staff that have put forward that, but it is about our collaboration with Tūwharetoa around the building. and the same application was intended to go into LGNZ, but yes, we will put that in perhaps next year.
Councillors, happy with that? Those two members going to the conference? And then what, three? Oh, Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, hello. Look, I've voiced my healthy scepticism for the value of money of this council remaining members of local government New Zealand and forking out 100k or more a year to remain members. So my question is to Your Worship and Deputy Worship, please. What can I ask? What efforts will be made for information dissemination of the benefits of this super local meeting which you're attending to the rest of us elected members and the public, please?
Cool. Happy to do every effort we can, reporting back on the attendance and anything of items of interest. You will certainly disseminate that information.
I look forward to it. Yep.
Right, number 3, what's that? Oh, Yvonne.
Yeah, so I can perhaps speak to that one. So as councillors are more than aware, we are developing a JMA with Tū Wharetoa Māori Trust Board. The proposal there is to add Councillor Westerman as a further member of that committee to support the work that that committee is doing at this point in time. So thank you to Councillor Westerman.
Thank you, Councillor Westerman. Are you happy to accept that position? Good, cool. Thank you for doing that. Right, see-ho. Nothing else, Karen? That's all tickety-boo? Okay. Okay, can I have a mover for 1, 2 and 3? Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, I need to move into confidence now for some items that need to be discussed. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Seconded by Councillor Westerman. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So we'll just have a couple of minutes break while we stop recording.